How to prevent damage to your physical media so it lasts forever. One of the main reasons people use against collecting physical media is that it can degrade or be damaged. Discs can be subject to a condition known as disc rot, a topic I did an entire video about on this channel. Discs can also very easily become scratched and unplayable. Cartridge-based games can corrode due to water damage or humidity, and the contacts can become so dirty that the game will not play or it will boot up with glitches and looking weird. Magnetic media like cassettes and VHS tapes can be subject to mold if left in damp areas for too long, and can also be damaged by dirty or malfunctioning players. Despite all this, it's easier than you think to keep all this from happening. I have a recurring type of comment on videos like this that says basically, why don't you just download everything and put it on a hard drive? Arr. Well, the answer is simple. If you have 1,000 movies on a hard drive and you lose the hard drive or it fails, you've lost 1,000 movies. Trust me, this has happened to me multiple times. Hard drives are not long-term reliable. If you have 1,000 discs and you lose one or it gets damaged, you lose one movie and you still have 999 others. So how do we prevent damaged discs and unplayable media? Here are 4 ways to ensure your physical media outlives you. Clean properly. Discs can be damaged in a variety of ways, and one of the easiest ways to scratch them is by improper cleaning. Make absolutely sure that the cloth you use to wipe a disc is perfectly clean and soft, like a microfiber lens cleaning cloth. Do not use chemicals other than maybe a couple drops of Dawn dish detergent or something similar in warm water. Always wipe across the disc, never in a circular pattern around the disc. There are 2 types of scratches: perpendicular, meaning across the disc, and circular, meaning the scratch follows the curve of the disc. You do not want circular. If a scratch cuts across the data, the worst thing you will get is a skip, a point where the laser skips over the scratch and presents a minor glitch. If the laser hits a long circular scratch, the disc will freeze and you may lose all the data. We'll talk more about this later when we talk about proper handling. For cartridge media, use Q-tips and high percentage alcohol. As you can see in the footage, you need to take your time and work the alcohol slowly into the contacts and gently rub away the dirt and corrosion. For rare and expensive games, it may be worth checking inside for corrosion and water damage, insect remains, and leaky batteries, which may destroy the game if not fixed. Depending on the game, you will probably need special tools like a GameBit driver or a Tri-Wing to open the cartridge, which are not available at normal hardware stores. Thankfully, a quick search on Amazon or other online retailers for NES screwdriver or GameBit screwdriver will get you multiple options for just a few dollars. If you plan on collecting cartridge media, it's a good idea to have these drivers handy anyway, as you will want to check the more collectible games to make sure they aren't fakes, which often requires you to open the cartridge. For magnetic media like VHS tapes and audio cassettes, most of the cleaning comes down to having a clean machine to play them on. Back in the day, we had head cleaning tapes, which would have a mildly abrasive tape and a reservoir for cleaning fluid. You would play these head cleaners like a regular tape and they would run through the machine and clean all the contact points. You can still buy used head cleaners on eBay and just use a few drops of alcohol as the cleaning fluid. If the machine is kept clean and the tapes are stored and handled correctly, you should have very little problems with cleaning. One situation that can occur is mold growing on the tape. This only happens if the tapes were stored somewhere damp, and it is fairly hard to clean. You have to disassemble the tape, clean the worst of the mold off with a soft cloth and compressed air, and then pass the tape several times through a donor machine, a player that you have exclusively for cleaning, because exposing the player to mold will eventually ruin the machine as well as the tape. Cleaning records is basically the opposite of cleaning discs. You want to use the same soft microfiber cloth, but you must always wipe in a circular pattern, following the grooves of the record. Use only warm water, or at the most a couple drops of dish detergent in a gallon of water, and make sure the cloth is well squeezed out so it's just wet but not dripping. Another method is a record cleaning brush, which is used while the record is spinning on the player. It has a fuzzy bottom, not unlike a chalkboard eraser, and you hold it steady with light pressure on the record as it spins on the player. Store properly. Storage is one of the most important aspects of preserving the life of your physical media. Most forms, such as discs, vinyl records, tapes, and cartridges, are all subject to damage under extreme conditions such as excessive heat, fluctuations in temperature, humidity, insect infestations, and physical effects like friction and crush damage. Ideally, for virtually all media, it should be stored and displayed in its original packaging, placed vertical, not horizontal, on a shelf in your main living area. If you do not have the room and they must be put in long-term storage, they should be kept in waterproof containers in climate-controlled areas of your home, such as a closet. Cartridges have electronic components that are sensitive to corrosion from humidity, and discs have adhesives that can be broken down by extreme heat and fluctuations of temperature, leaving them susceptible to disc rot. Do not store any physical media in garages or outdoor sheds, and be very sure your basement is dry before considering storing there. Investing in a dehumidifier is a good idea if you must store in the basement. Physical damage can also occur if items like discs are left laying around. Pets and often children can do unexpected things to them, like chew them or try to shove them in a toaster, right? You get to guess who is doing which. Some people choose to store discs in binders to save space. This can be okay short term, but keep in mind that the disc sleeves can break down and end up adhering to the discs, especially if the binders are lying flat and the discs are being pressed. Keep them vertical and do not stack them. Consider replacing the sleeves every 5 years or so to prevent problems and keep them in a cool, dry place. Handle properly. All the safe storage in the world will not protect your media if you handle it improperly when using it. This is the most critical point where damage can happen. Talking about discs specifically, when removing them from their cases, be sure to use the release button in the center. Not using it will cause you to struggle, which can result in bending the disc and putting stress on the center hole. This is how cracks happen. When placing the disc in its player, be sure to only handle it on the edges and don't touch the surface of the disc. For both discs and records, do not set the disc down on any surface except in its case or in the appropriate player. Cartridges and tape media like VHS tapes are much less fragile, and you can be a bit more easygoing with them, but you still want to avoid touching the contacts in a cartridge or exposing them to debris, dust, and liquids. Only touch discs on the edges. Between play sessions, don't leave them sitting loose on your TV stand. Don't leave them in the player for long periods of time, and don't place them face down on any surface. Children and pets can do unexpected things, so take precautions to put your media away after use. Inspect your purchases. Many people starting collecting today do not think of the history of the item before it came into your hands. In many cases, the media you are buying is 20, 30, or even 40 years old or more. It may have lived a wonderful life in the hands of very careful and responsible adults, or it may have been under little Timmy's bed covered in moldy gym socks and Cheeto dust. You just don't know. And this is why it's important to educate yourself and thoroughly inspect every item you buy prior to purchase. For disc-based media, take the disc out of the case and inspect it in good light, looking for scratches and deep nicks, particularly scratches that run around the disc versus across the surface. Look at the area around the center hole for cracks and splintering that would indicate that the disc has been handled roughly. Hold the disc up to the light with the artwork away from you and try to see if any light shines through the surface of the disc. The appearance of pinholes in the disc letting light through could be a sign of disc rot, although not always. If the item you have chosen to buy is common, I would recommend not buying it unless it is perfect. You can always find another copy later. If the item is rare, use your judgment on the price you are paying and try to buy from sellers like pawn shops or retail stores that offer some kind of return policy. Most reputable retailers have at least a 14 to 30-day return policy, allowing you to exchange the item for something else in their store, if not give you your money back. For cartridges, it can be harder to tell if the game works just by looking at it. Thankfully, most cartridges are quite robust and will survive pretty much anything little Timmy can do to it. First, you want to inspect the outer shell of the game. If it is clean and the label is undamaged and there are no signs of water damage, chances are good that the game was well taken care of. Next, look inside the slot. Check the pins for rust and corrosion, and any physical damage to the pins that would indicate the game was jammed into something incorrectly. For a more expensive game, ask the retailer to open the cartridge. You want to see first that the cartridge is legitimate and not a fake. You can find pictures of the correct board on Google Images. Secondly, you want to look for any corrosion or indication of insect residue, especially around the battery if it has one, which may have leaked or expanded over time and done damage to the board. These batteries allow your game to have save files, so it's a good idea to ask if the battery has been replaced by the retailer, or you may have some loss of functionality with the game. For magnetic media like cassettes and VHS tapes, always check the tape itself. For cassettes, make sure the tape running through the bottom looks tight and the little foam pressure points are intact. These hold the tape against the heads of the player and the tape will not play if they have been broken off. For VHS tapes, look in the windows and see if the tape looks tightly wound and check for mold. The mold will appear to be a white powdery substance on the reel. Moldy tapes can be cleaned with some elbow grease, but it is not worth the effort unless it is a rare item. Lift the access flap and check to see that the tape is connected to both reels and running tight through the channel. If the tape appears to be wrinkled or chewed, it has been damaged in a faulty machine and parts of the movie may be unwatchable. For vinyl records, it's important that they are being stored correctly to avoid warping. If they are leaning or if they are in large stacks, they can become permanently warped and you will not like the trippy sound you will get out of them. Because records have actual grooves and the sound comes from actual physical bumps and ridges in the grooves, they are very susceptible to physical damage. Scratches, no matter how small, will immediately be heard in the music, and even repeated play can degrade the sound eventually as the player needle exerts friction on those bumps and ridges and wears them down. Look for records that present well. If the outer sleeve is in perfect condition, chances are that the previous owner looked after it. Check the actual record for dirt and scratches. I would not recommend buying anything less than perfect unless it is something rare that you won't find elsewhere. If you take only one thing away from this video, it's that physical media can be a great way to preserve your access to content for a very long time. You just need to take a little care and concern to store, handle, and clean it in the best way possible, and ensure you don't buy items that are already damaged or dirty. Thanks for watching this video. I hope it helped some of you out there. If you have any questions, be sure to leave a comment. I try to answer every single one. Thanks for subscribing, folks. Stay classy.